Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're untangling what is absolutely, without a doubt, the most baffling tech acquisition of 2026. Look, if you follow the AI space even a little bit, your feed has probably been flooded with headlines about this, and we're looking at a deal that, honestly, on the surface, it makes absolutely no sense. But as we peel back the layers, it reveals a master plan that could literally reshape the entire technology landscape as we know it.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this is the central mystery we're trying to solve today. Why in the world is SpaceX, a company famous for launching orbital rockets and blanketing the globe with satellite internet, spending a king's ransom on a software application that just helps developers type code? I mean, it feels like a total paradox, right? But to really understand the why, we first need to wrap our heads around the sheer gravity of the what. Let's look at the numbers.
$60 billion. That is the staggering purchase price for Cursor. In the world of tech mergers, this is just an astronomical figure for a startup that's, essentially a few years old. To put that into perspective, that is more than the entire GDP of some nations, completely handed over for an AI coding tool. And get this, the architect behind this $60 billion unicorn? It's Michael Truell, Cursor's founder. He's an incredibly intense MIT dropout who is just 25 years old. This is a founder who's legendary for his relentless drive. He reportedly refused to even draw a salary for years and was known for putting job candidates through these grueling month-long work trials. Sounds fun, right? But hey, you really can't argue with the results.
Because, well, that crazy intensity actually paid off massively. Cursor's annual recurring revenue didn't just climb, it completely exploded. We're talking about soaring from $100 million to a staggering $2 billion in basically a single year. They captured over 60% of Fortune 500 companies in the process. That kind of hypergrowth is virtually unprecedented in the enterprise software world.
Now, on the other side of the table, we've got SpaceX. Following their massive all-stock merger with Elon Musk's xAI earlier this year, SpaceX is now sitting on an estimated $1.25 trillion valuation. When you frame it against that massive trillion-dollar backdrop, suddenly that $60 billion price tag starts to look a lot less like a crazy impulsive gamble and a lot more like a highly calculated strategic maneuver.
Now, what's really interesting about this timeline is the sheer financial brilliance of how the deal was actually structured. This wasn't some sudden hostile takeover. Back in April, SpaceX didn't actually buy Cursor outright. They bought a call option to acquire them, locking in that $60 billion price. Then, in June, SpaceX executed their massive Project Apex IPO. By waiting to finalize the deal until after going public, SpaceX gets to use their highly appreciated public stock as the currency. I mean, it is an absolute masterclass in corporate finance.
But you might be wondering, what if something goes wrong? Like, what if regulators step in, or SpaceX just gets cold feet before the Q3 closing? Well, the fine print is heavily stacked in Cursor's favor. If SpaceX backs out, Cursor is guaranteed a staggering $10 billion breakup fee, and that's paid out in cash and access to massive computing resources. That is one heck of a consolation prize. For Cursor's young founders, this whole deal is just incredibly de-risked.
So, with skyrocketing revenue and essentially the entire developer world at their fingertips, why would Cursor agree to sell at all? Well, it's because they hit something known in the industry as the compute wall. Cursor had been relying on other companies' AI models to run their tool, but to actually survive long-term, they needed to train their own in-house model, called Composer 2. And building frontier AI requires hundreds of thousands of GPUs. No amount of venture capital can just magically manifest that kind of physical hardware overnight. Cursor was totally bottlenecked by physical reality.
And this is where the puzzle pieces just snap together perfectly. Cursor had this massive developer adoption and brilliant software, but they severely lacked the physical hardware to run it all at scale. SpaceX and xAI, they had the exact opposite problem. They had just built the Colossus supercomputer, housing an absurd 100,000 GPUs, but their own AI coding application was seriously lagging behind. They had all the muscle, but they lacked the finesse. Cursor is the perfect missing piece.
And this brilliantly illustrates the battlefield right now. The AI coding landscape is essentially a three-horse race. You've got Microsoft dominating the enterprise default space with Copilot. You have Anthropic leading the actual intelligence benchmarks with Claude Code. And then you have Cursor fighting them both with just sheer developer love and rapid adoption. But Cursor couldn't keep fighting those tech giants without giant resources of its own.
So, by bringing Cursor in-house, SpaceX activates this unstoppable, recursive AI factory. Think about it like a giant flywheel. Step 1. Millions of developers write their software in Cursor. Step 2. Every single keystroke, edit, and bug fix flows directly into training xAI's Grok Waddle. Step 3. Grok instantly becomes better at writing code. Step 4. That superior performance attracts even more developers to the platform. The loop just repeats, accelerating faster and faster every single time.
As one analyst put it perfectly when looking through SpaceX's IPO filing, you're not the customer, you're the training set. And xAI desperately needed this influx of data. Reports show their model traffic had actually collapsed by nearly 90% from its peak. So by acquiring Cursor, SpaceX instantly inherits a massive pipeline of millions of top-tier developers who are now, whether they realize it or not, training the next generation of Musk's AI models with every single line of code they write.
But of course, a deal this huge doesn't exist in a vacuum. If SpaceX and Cursor are the big winners here, we have to stop and ask the obvious question. What does this mean for Anthropic? Remember, Cursor was originally built as a wrapper right on top of Anthropic's Claude models.
Consider the harsh financial reality here for a second. Cursor's API usage reportedly accounted for nearly 45% of Anthropic's total revenue. Let that sink in. Almost half of their entire business came through this one single tool. If SpaceX routes Cursor's massive developer base away from Claude and defaults them over to Grok, which, let's be real, they have every financial incentive to do, Anthropic is looking at an immediate, catastrophic revenue vacuum. The domino effect of this one acquisition is going to shake the entire industry to its core.
What we're witnessing right now is the dawn of two emerging, vertically integrated monopolies. On one side, you have Microsoft's established stack, Azure for the compute power, GitHub Copilot for the developer layer, and OpenAI providing the brain. But on the other side, Musk has quietly assembled a perfect mirror image. The Colossus supercomputer for massive hardware, Cursor for the developer execution layer, and Grok acting as the underlying intelligence.
So the crucial point is this. xAI was never just meant to be a chatbot company built to rival ChatGPT. No way. It is the shared AI nervous system for the entire Musk ecosystem. You have Starlink providing global edge connectivity, Colossus providing the raw training power, Cursor capturing human logic and software development, and Grok serving as the central brain tying the whole shebang together. It's a completely integrated infrastructure layer.
And that brings us to the ultimate endgame here, straight from Elon Musk himself. In the long term, space-based AI is obviously the only way to scale. Why does a rocket company buy an AI text editor? Because the biggest bottleneck for AI isn't just getting enough GPUs anymore, it's electricity. Earth's power grid literally cannot support the future of AI compute. The grand vision is to actually move these data centers off-planet, powering them directly with uninterrupted solar energy up in orbit, and using Starlink to beam that limitless intelligence right back down to developers using Cursor.
So what you should really take away from all this is that the era of the neutral, independent AI developer tool, it's over. It's basically extinct. The frontier AI labs realize that whoever controls the interface where the code is written, well, they control the future of software entirely. They're locking down all the distribution channels. Cursor survived because they picked a side, bringing the ultimate weapon, developer love, to the entity with the ultimate hardware. Which leaves us with this final massive question to chew on. By integrating the real-time data of X, the execution workflow of Cursor, and the sheer hardware and orbital infrastructure of SpaceX, has this $60 billion deal just quietly created the world's most dominant vertically integrated tech monopoly? It's a profound shift that forces us to completely rethink the next decade of technology. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.